This is Ed in San Diego, and it's hot day today, Labor Day. Hot in San Diego. Heat wave, it's very unusual. 90 degrees and heavy, heavy humidity. And I've got this air conditioning toy I bought online. It's staring right at me, but I'm really hot. So, how are you today out there in TV land? We're going to talk today about media prep because we're in post-pandemic, hopefully. Seems that way. But just yesterday on the news, they were saying from the whatever it is, Center for Disease Control, saying it's going to be a rough fall when the change of weather happens, particularly in the north. Rough on flu, and there's going to be a new variant of the disease, and so Pfizer and Moderna, they said, have new boosters that they're going to start making available during September. And they say everyone should get it because it's going to be a rough winter, they said. So who knows? Our special guest today is a vibrant person who's super smart in terms of, well, in life, but specifically today, media presence in the post-pandemic. Dianne Devitt, welcome again to Global TV.
Hi, Ed. It's always good to be here. Thanks for that glorious introduction. I have to live up to it now.
Well, it's Labor Day, so we can labor our way through this.
Labor our way through it, right?
Yeah. So we're going to have a brief conversation today about, you're not really zoomed out there, are you? You just haven't been using it right. And now that the companies want you to go back into the office at least some of the time, and I know for me, I'm debating whether I want to go to live meetings. Yeah, I want the networking, but the whole idea of the money and the time away, I'm really comfortable now for more than 2 years sitting right here on Zoom TV and going around the world. Just this past week, I did 2 shows on September 1, one for Asia Pacific and the other one in Scandinavia. Within 24 hours, 2 shows. So I've done enough talking now. Dianne, you've been teaching at NYU. Now this was online currently, right?
Well, it was online, but I'm just gonna jump back because I think you brought up a few different topics, and one which is probably the most prevalent in everyone's mind over the past year or so is well, you're like you said I don't know if I want to go back to a studio. I've been doing my shows now, and I think that you hit the nail on the head in many ways, Ed, and I'll get back to that in a second, because
thank you.
There are basically 3 choices that CEOs and companies have now that has been in the media and talked about, right? You can either have an all virtual company because you're a company of 1, 2, maybe 3 people, and then the rest of the world is supporting you. But if you have a big company, you've got a virtual choice, you've got a hybrid choice, you've got an in-person choice. And then, of course, there are the services like bus driver, taxi driver, nurse, that don't have a choice of virtual. You're in person and you're performing, or you're not doing your job. So there's a lot of different topics that come up. And the one thing that is really prevalent in my mind, and we'll tie it into the media presence in a few minutes, is going back to what's the objective of your work. Your work, you're a global media company. So having the ability to reach, 10 different time zones in one day from one place is an asset that helps you. Yes, right there, exactly. For other people, and also, and I know you don't mind me saying this, you're not 21. You're not 20, you're not 21, you're not 25, you're not 30 years old. Why do I say that? And I'm not being unpolitically correct, and I'm not being anything, but I'm going to speak for myself that when I was young, work was not just work, but it was my social life, and it was collaboration, and I was mentored by the senior people in the office. I was guided if I had a question or a doubt, or if we just had a joke to tell in the middle of the day, we were there and laughed. So there's a lot of discussion of, yeah, we can have a virtual company, which some CEOs are thrilled about because it saves them so much overhead, as well as saves the employee the obvious commuting and this and that. Yes, we all know the benefits. You're at home with children, you have a flexible schedule, this and that. But then I look at myself and I say, well, what if I were the CEO of a company that I wanted to create a strong corporate culture? I wanted to have people enjoy that work environment. To me, and I come from the meetings and events world, just like there is no substitute for in-person meetings, there is no substitute for working with people around you. There just isn't, you know? I mean,
Absolutely.
let me ask you a question. Like you sit when you sit on your own, but you know, someone said to me the other day, well, you know what, my job is data entry. I could be, what am I going to do? Commute to work, sit at a desk all day when I could be sitting doing data? I said, yeah, this is the difference. The difference is if you're surrounded by people, you're actually feeling their energy, and you're feeling that nonverbal communication that you don't feel when you're staring at a screen.
And because you're around other people in person, even though you may not talk to the big cheese in the corner office, he or she is right there looking at you sometimes, and you're getting to realize what the company is all about.
Yeah, I'm not
You
saying, you
can't do
know,
that sitting alone looking at the
no,
screen.
no, you can't. And at the same time, I think that many companies and many people are at the juncture of where they have a hybrid, you know, have a hybrid situation, basically saying, you know, whether you want to set up a meeting with your team, your department, your colleagues, you want to come in, and how many of them are saying, you know, because they've restructured, reorganized workstations, workspaces, so you technically have to book a location. You don't have your own desk anymore. I get all of that, and I think that, again, I think there's no answer because we're still figuring it out, and it's too soon to say what works or not. You know, I think about, like, one of my clients a couple of years ago asked me my opinion on this exact topic, because what happened is when the pandemic was at its peak, the CEO said some people in, and I don't know, like say they lived in, I don't know, pick a city, Houston, which it wasn't. But in other words, wherever they were based, some people took it upon themselves to move to a say a more affordable locale without permission from senior management. Oh, we can still do our job remote. Well, you know, now that things have changed, maybe senior management wants you in the office. Maybe they need you in the office. I mean, again, there's so many questions with this. They're so subjective to the specific company, don't you think? I mean, that's my brain. That's my feeling.
Yeah. So I am really interested to learn about what you're teaching at NYU.
Yeah, well, I teach conference and event management to the undergraduates, but it's not very different from what we're speaking about here, because what are students learning now? How do you define the objective of a meeting and event, and how do you define whether it's going to be the most effective and efficient to do it virtually, to do a hybrid, or to do an in-person meeting?
So Elon, you know, have you been following this guy, Elon Musk? Now, he's quite a guy. So,
yeah,
I mean, sometimes he says weird things, but he's been quoted in one of the magazines, I don't know whether it was Inc. or Fortune recently, about, and it was a reiteration of something that he announced to the world last year, um, about how meetings can be a total waste of time, and he proved it financially, about how much it costs to bring people together for a live meeting. And he says, yeah, some meetings are important, but most of them aren't, and they're too damn long. And the minute people get bored, you lose them, and you still have to pay them to sit there.
Well,
And,
and you know what I say to him? Then your meetings aren't planned well.
uh-huh.
Number one, they're not planned well. Number two, maybe you didn't need it. And this goes back to what I'm just saying. Maybe you don't need the in-person meeting to answer a question or to have a team brainstorm. But eventually something's going to come out of that in-person meeting, some brainstorming, some spark, huh? And so yes, no, I agree with you, but I'm in the business of planned events. And the business of planned events is the same business as advertising or public relations. They have you define your objectives, your goals. You're not going to hold a meeting or plan a meeting if you don't know why, and you can't justify the goals and the return. So, so I agree with you, but I do think that most people waste a lot of time and money because they don't plan them correctly and they don't know how to maximize the time. But getting back to that, it's almost a dichotomy, isn't it? With people going back to work. And for you and I to have this conversation, it's great if it sparks an idea in someone's mind. But as I said, I mean, the most educated people in the world are doing analyses on these. And sometimes I think you can overanalyze something. But if there's one thing I could say to younger people at this stage in my life is, don't be so quick to think about the inconveniences of traveling to an office versus the advantages and benefits of being with other people and being in a supportive environment that can enhance your job. So again, it's so subjective, hard to have an opinion, right?
Yeah.
Hard to have an opinion. But, the one thing that you and I discussed about this show is the relationship to your media presence in this world. And the one thing that I will say first and foremost, Ed, is regardless if your company is virtual, hybrid, in person, you're always going to be online, right? Video calls are not going away. Meetings, Teams, Zoom, whatever you want to call it, whatever you use, they're not going away. And people need to be cognizant more than ever of their presence, of their delivery, of their background, and of their behavior, because it's very easy for some people to slack off. It's very easy for some people to forget that this might be the first time that you see me online. And if I'm looking in the camera and I'm like over here and I'm, scratching and drinking and doing things, that's not making, number one, it's not making a very good impression. But number two, you are totally going to be turned off and not engaged in conversation with me.
That's right.
So, right?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I want to say now is something that caught my eye either last night or early this morning. The days and times just blend together now. But somebody's holding a meeting. It's actually, I'm not going to name names, but it's younger than me, women in my industry space, which is talent mobility management. Okay, the company's moving, relocating people for a job.
Relocation, yeah.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, a lot of these people are looking for things to do, and others are really busy, and they're the ones making the money. But so the newest topic that really caught my eye, because I said, "Oh, that's a good idea," but how are they going to do it? Okay, a bunch of young women talking to each other. So I signed up to attend. I think I'm the only guy so far that signed up on this thing. It's all virtual. And so it's a way. So the theme of this thing, and I can't quote it right now, but it's about how to avoid being invisible by being remote.
Interesting.
Okay, invisible. They are saying invisible to the stakeholders,
Right.
higher ups in the organization. All right. Now, the people who are leaders of this confab don't work together in the same company. Some of them are competing service providers, or they take different angles of the service. Okay, but there's a lot of collaboration and co-opetition in my space. And we used to do the same thing 20 years ago. And so there's a whole new group doing the same thing, only it's today's words. All right.
Yeah, exactly. No, I know. Nothing new, just new ways of interpreting them and doing them, right? But no, that's really interesting. And I tell you a couple of thoughts came to mind. That's interesting, how to avoid being invisible. But I'm a professional speaker. I'm a writer, I invest time, excuse me, and effort to do just that. So I write articles, I write blogs, I'm out with my social media. When you're in a communication niche, if you're a communicator, then you need to communicate, don't you? And that's another, it's interesting that you bring that up, because all of these online groups, I guess the point, and I have faced this myself with a couple of groups that I'm involved in, is am I getting the return? Now I'm in one that involves 800 professional women, business owners, speakers, teachers, consultants, facilitators. And the beauty of it is that we support one another. We recommend ourselves to different clients. Oh, Dianne would be a better speaker for that subject matter than me, and so on and so forth. So I think the whole advent of these business groups, more than and the value of associations, and then also the value of masterminds. Like, I think I told you I started a mastermind for women in communication a couple of years ago, and the work that we've done, the depth of the work that we've done on a personal and professional level is astounding in some ways to me, like breaking through to people. And then in that sense, that breakthrough then becomes the strength to then climb up a ladder or do something different in business.
So when you say mastermind, you're talking about an idea exchange.
And and more than an idea exchange, there's a couple like, yes. So it's an exchange. It's a confidential, right, environment that you exchange thoughts, conceptual, structured in some ways, so that there's an outcome, there's an objective and outcome every week. And people leave with takeaways that help them. But, tying it all in here is getting back to the whole working remote, is that whether it's a mastermind or belonging to a group or going to an association, is belonging to something. I wrote an article a few weeks ago, I think on LinkedIn, about the sense of belonging and how it's intrinsic to all of us. I love belonging in your world. It makes me feel, oh, great, I get to see Ed and have a discussion, but more importantly, share some information, right? So people need to belong.
Yeah. So media prep.
Yeah.
All right. So in the early days, nobody was prepared to be camera ready, didn't know what it meant. And then it dawned on everybody that, look at the babes on Fox News. They go out of the way to find models, Miss Americas.
You're talking about the men, I presume.
Oh, well, yeah. So, yeah. And so, who's the audience, right? And so, and anyway, it's worked. The ratings are sky high. But they that's a lot of work for a lot of people to be that camera ready more than once a week or so. So it doesn't work. So what's next? Okay. And then the other is slovenly. and that doesn't work either.
No.
And so, okay, step one, step two, how do you prepare to be on camera, on Zoom, without looking like you're going into makeup?
Uh,
Oh, you've just come out of makeup.
or ever come out of makeup? Well,
Yeah.
again, I think there's a whole list of items, but for the top three, I would say make sure the lighting is sufficient in your area. Make sure you have proper lighting. Make sure that you are familiar with a camera. And if you're not familiar with a camera, practice. And my biggest tip to people is put a picture of something you love or
Oh, I
someone
like
you
that.
love.
I like
Remember,
that. Yeah.
like a kitten or a puppy or a nature scene or
Yeah.
someone you love above the camera location.
Yeah.
So that when you're looking at the camera, you're seeing their face peripherally and you're feeling more comfortable.
So when you look at my giraffes in back of me here,
I
yeah,
love them.
So this is Joanne was in South Africa on a travel National Geographic tour. It was really a 5-star thing.
Mhm.
And so she went to anyway, she got me these 2 giraffes. Isn't that cute?
They're cute, but they tell me a couple of things. I love the books and I love the giraffes.
Yeah.
And hopefully you like to read and
Yeah.
hopefully you like giraffes. And but it's just enough. It's enough of this framework of the set of the Zoom screen
Maximizing it.
to give me a little bit about your personality and to soften it. And I think that would be my third tip is be careful what your background is. Choose it wisely. I don't want to see anyone in bed. Don't want to see anyone comfortable. You need to remember that.
I don't want to see the bed.
No, but you need most of all to remember that people will remember visually 90% over what they hear. That will superimpose it. So, so your background is very important. And above all, don't go the other way and make it so distracting.
Yeah. So you know what? I used experimented last week with some virtual backgrounds, and they
like that.
Well, that kind of thing.
Like this, so when I'm talking to creative people, I use this one.
Yeah.
Or this one when I'm asking people to imagine, right?
Sounds like a John Lennon song.
Why would I use this if I don't live in Hawaii?
Yeah.
Or the Caribbean, right?
So I have some with my logo on the background and different logos, but I'm not a tech and I can't, and the resolution or the composition of them is huge. And so it's this giant thing behind me, totally distracting and self-defeating because I don't need that.
Forget it, Ed. Do not even use it. You need a green screen in order to do it. And it's just not good. But I just think for the purpose of today and our little short conversation that, because you asked me about that, is whether you're virtual, you're a hybrid, you're in person, working, you still need to be aware of your presence online. And if you want to keep your name out there, get your name out there. But it's a lot of space. So it's a crowded highway, but I always say there's room for one more, And how do you avoid being invisible? Get out there. You say yes. And you make yourself known, and you don't be afraid to speak to people, because being alone also affects your sense of interaction and having a conversation with people.
So we have about 5 or 6 minutes remaining in this abbreviated edition of Global TV. by design, because we know that people are busy. It's particularly now this week, Labor Day week. It's what I call a sprint to Christmas time, because it's really going to go by fast. And so a month from now is October 4 or 5, whatever day today is. And then all of a sudden it's election day with all these crazy midterm elections. And then after that is Christmas party time, you know, and then there's New Year's week, right? And so all of a sudden we're in 23. So people who are in the marketing line of work, which I'm in, is that in order to generate business in this last quarter of the year, this week is it. This is blast off. Doesn't matter that there could be an oxygen leak like with that rocket ship doesn't want to get off. I got to get off the launch pad and get going. And so that's why I've started this process of promoting and producing this GEO
Yeah.
means geographic, which means we're focusing in on an area. Like September 1, we did 2 shows, as I mentioned, Scandinavia, and also in the different time zones. We did Asia Pacific, all within 24 hours. And now the programs were so good. I mean, they've each gotten almost 1,000 independent page views without me pumping it out.
Right.
And in a week, it's great. So our Google count is way up now, month over month, 62% or something like that.
Well,
Over
that's
the
good.
previous.
I mean, I guess it shows, you know, what you learned a little bit after all these years, right, Ed?
It's amazing. Yeah. So yeah, as of today, 30-day on a 30-day revolving basis, our page count, audience visits page count, were 5,501. All right, according to Google Analytics, and that represents a 65% up over previous 30 days.
That's really good. That's really good.
Yeah, I mean that's like more
Well,
than
and again,
1,000 a
like,
week.
yeah, but you also keep this show as a very conversant, you know, it's a talk show, right?
That's it. Not a speech.
It's a conversation with people. And I think that again, I think what came out of the pandemic, when you speak post-pandemic or post whatever stage we're in, those of us, you specifically, chose broadcast as the medium. And I mean, what did you make? How many thousand? I mean, you've had to make over 1,000 shows so far. I don't even know how many you've done.
We have it all counted. They count everything here.
Yeah.
So it's 551.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
right.
surprised. I mean, I know it was a lot,
Right.
but I mean, because every day,
But
every
those
week,
have generated, get this now, according to Google Analytics, okay? So those have generated a little over 190,000 audience visits, and from over 100 countries, which 65% US and Canada, 20% roughly all of Europe, including Moscow, and about 15% this vast area of Asia Pacific, including India, China, and so on. And like 2% Latin America, mostly Mexico, and upcoming fast is Brazil. And so I've decided I'm going to go reach out to the world and still do US stuff. But the way I look at it, I do most of my shows so far in what's my early morning, up until so from like my 6 a.m. to about my 10 a.m.
Mhm.
And so by my noontime, I got nothing to do in terms of new work. Sure, I have
do all your
time.
research. Yeah.
And follow-ups. So I decided I'm going to start scheduling shows, not around the clock, because I do need to get out and go for a walk even today in the hot. But or maybe I'll just go in the pool and forget about walking. That's probably a better idea.
That sounds good to me, but yeah, me too. So, but I think, listen, it's all good, and I'm grateful that it's gone full circle and that your media presence has grown too.
Well, it's your tips, and that's why doing this little soliloquy here
Yeah.
between us is just adds so much value.
Oh,
So
thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
I
I
love
hope it
you.
help. I
It's a
hope it
hugs.
helps.
These are
I
hugs.
hope, thank you. I hope it helps. Hope it helps somebody, but I appreciate the opportunity to be back. I'm working on a couple of new things that'll be launched in September, October, which we'll revisit. And yeah, and so like
Okay.
I say, with everybody out there, if you're thinking you're confused, you're not sure, hybrid, virtual, in person, you're not alone.
Try
Right?
it. Yeah,
Time
get
will
out.
tell. All right, Ed.
Try it. All right.
Yep.
See you soon again
All
on
right.
Global
Thanks so
TV. Thank
much.
you, Dianne Devitt.
Take care. Bye, everyone. Bye,
Ciao.
Ed. Thank you. Bye. Ciao.
Bye. Thank you.